Stop scrolling. This is going to feel uncomfortable at first, because what you're about to hear isn't something you were taught. It's something you've been quietly noticing your entire life, but never had the words to explain. You felt different, not in a loud, obvious way, but in a quiet, persistent way that never really left you. Even in rooms full of people, there's been this strange sense that you're observing more than you're participating. Like you're present, but not fully attached to the same patterns everyone else seems to follow so easily. And maybe you've tried to ignore it. Maybe you told yourself you're just overthinking, or that you need to be more normal, blend in more, stop questioning so much. But no matter how hard you tried, that feeling never went away. Because the truth is, you were never meant to experience life the way most people do. Not because you're above anyone, not because you're special in some unrealistic, exaggerated way, but because your mind, your awareness, your perception operates differently. And deep down, you already know that. You've always been more aware of people's intentions, more sensitive to energy in a room, quicker to notice patterns in behavior, quicker to feel when something isn't right, even when no one else sees it. That's not something you learned. That's something you've always had. And maybe that's exactly why certain phases of your life felt heavier than they should have. Because when you see more, you feel more. When you understand deeper, you carry more. And for a long time, that probably felt like a burden. You may have questioned yourself constantly, replayed conversations in your mind, wondered why you couldn't just switch off like others seem to. You may have felt misunderstood, like people only see a surface version of you, while the real you stays hidden, not because you want it that way, but because it's hard to explain something most people don't experience. But here, where everything starts to shift. That phase, that confusion, that emotional weight, it wasn't random. It was the beginning of something. Because at some point, something changed inside you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. You started pulling away from things that once felt normal. Conversations that used to interest you started to feel empty. Environments you used to tolerate started to drain you. And people, you began to see them differently. Not with judgment, but with clarity. You started recognizing patterns, noticing inconsistencies, understanding motivations, without anyone needing to say a word. And that's when things got even more confusing. Because while you were growing internally, your external world didn't always match that growth. You may have felt isolated, disconnected, like you're evolving in a space where no one else is moving at the same pace. But what you didn't realize at the time is that this breaking phase wasn't breaking you. It was separating you from versions of yourself that no longer fit. You weren't losing your identity. You were shedding what was never truly you. And that process, it's not comfortable. It challenges everything. It forces you to question your beliefs, your habits, your relationships, even the way you see yourself. But in the middle of all that discomfort, something powerful starts to happen. You begin to notice signs. Small at first, almost easy to overlook. Moments where your intuition becomes sharper. Situations where you instinctively know what to do without overthinking. Times when you choose peace instead of reaction. You start valuing your time differently. You become more selective with your energy. You stop chasing validation and start trusting your own judgment. And maybe the most important shift of all, you become comfortable being alone without feeling lonely. That's not disconnection. That's alignment. Because when your internal world becomes clearer, your external choices naturally change. And this is where the truth about your identity begins to reveal itself. Not as something shocking in a dramatic sense, but shocking in how simple and real it actually is. You are not who you were conditioned to be. You are not the expectations placed on you. You are not the roles you were taught to play just to fit in. Your true identity is someone who sees, someone who questions, someone who feels deeply, but is learning how to stay grounded within it. Someone who doesn't blindly follow, but instead understands. And that might not sound extraordinary on the surface, but in a world where most people move on autopilot, that level of awareness changes everything. Because once you see clearly, you can't go back to pretending. Once you understand deeply, you can't go back to surface-level living. And that's where courage comes in. Not loud, dramatic courage, but quiet, consistent courage. The kind that shows up when you choose to stay true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. The kind that shows up when you walk away from things that no longer align, even if it means standing alone for a while. The kind that shows up when you trust your inner voice, even when no one else understands it. Because this path, it's not about being different for the sake of it. It's about being real in a world that often rewards pretending. And yes, it might feel lonely at times, but it's also where clarity lives. It's where peace starts to replace confusion. It's where you begin to build a life that actually reflects who you are, not who you were told to be. So if this resonates with you, if something inside you feels like it's finally being put into words, then understand this clearly. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not too much. You're not overthinking. You're becoming aware. And awareness always feels unfamiliar at first. But it's also the beginning of everything changing for the better. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the moment you start seeing it clearly. So don't rush it. Don't force it. And most importantly, don't ignore it. Because the more you trust this process, the more you'll recognize just how much of your life is starting to make sense. Pause, gentle fade. And if this message spoke to something real inside you, then you already know this isn't just another video. This is a reminder. So take a moment, breathe, and reflect on where you are right now and where you feel yourself going. If you're ready to keep exploring this path, to keep understanding yourself on a deeper level, then stay connected with this space. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen, because every message here is designed to help you think deeper, see clearer, and move forward with intention. And if this video reached you at the right time, let it be known. Drop a comment below, I see it now. Because sometimes, the most powerful shift begins the moment you finally recognize it. Because once you say those words, I see it now, something subtle begins to lock into place inside you. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a realization that was always waiting for you to catch up to it. You begin to notice that the way you look at your past starts to change. Things that once felt random, painful, or even unfair, they begin to make a different kind of sense. Not because they were meant to happen in some mystical way, but because of what they forced you to develop within yourself. The resilience, the awareness, the ability to read between the lines when something doesn't feel right. And maybe for the first time, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you start asking, what did this reveal about me? Because your identity, your real identity, was never something handed to you. It was something shaped, refined, uncovered. Through everything you've experienced. Even the moments you wish never happened. Especially those moments. You start realizing that you were never behind in life. You were just moving at a pace that required deeper understanding before action. While others rushed into things, you observed. While others followed trends, you questioned. While others avoided discomfort, you sat with it even when it was heavy. And that changes the kind of person you become. Because now you don't just react to life. You respond to it with awareness, with intention, with a level of clarity that most people spend years trying to develop. And here's the part that most people don't talk about. This level of awareness comes with responsibility. Because once you see things clearly, you can't unsee them. You can't go back to ignoring red flags. You can't pretend you don't feel what you feel. You can't shrink yourself just to make others comfortable anymore. And that's where a new kind of challenge begins. Not confusion, but choice. The choice to live aligned with what you now understand. Or to go back to what feels familiar, but no longer fits. And if you're being honest with yourself, you already know which direction feels right. It's just not the easiest one. Because choosing growth means letting go. Letting go of old versions of yourself. Letting go of certain people. Letting go of environments that don't support who you're becoming. And that process can feel lonely at times. But it's not emptiness. It's space. Space for something more aligned to enter your life. And slowly, without forcing anything, you start attracting different experiences, different conversations, different connections. Not because you chased them, but because you changed. Because your standards changed. Your energy changed. Your awareness changed. And this is where your identity becomes something solid. Not based on labels. Not based on what others expect. But based on how you think, how you move, how you choose. You become someone who doesn't need constant validation. Because you've learned how to validate yourself. You become someone who doesn't rush decisions. Because you trust your timing. You become someone who doesn't fear being alone. Because you've built a connection with yourself. Visual, person sitting calmly, grounded presence. And that is powerful. Not in a loud way, but in a stable, unshakable way. Because now when challenges come, you don't collapse under them like before. You pause. You process. You respond. You understand that discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong. It often means something is changing. And the truth is, your identity isn't something you find once and that's it. It's something that continues to evolve. As long as you stay aware, honest, and willing to grow. So don't box yourself into one version. Don't limit yourself to what feels safe. Allow yourself to expand, to question, to redefine who you are, again and again, in healthier, stronger ways. Because the version of you that once felt lost is the same version that led you here. The version that questioned everything is the same version that's now starting to understand. And the version of you watching this right now is not the same person you were even a few months ago. Even if it doesn't feel obvious yet. Pause, silence, then soft music swell. Growth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just shows up in the way you think differently. The way you react differently. The way you no longer tolerate what you once accepted. And one day you'll look back and realize how far you've actually come. So keep going, even when it feels slow, even when it feels unclear. Because clarity isn't something you chase. It's something that reveals itself as you keep moving forward. And if you're still here, still listening, then that says something about you. It means you're not avoiding this process. You're facing it. And that alone sets you apart in a meaningful way. So don't ignore that. Build on it. Stay consistent with it. And most importantly, trust it. If this continuation spoke to you, go back, listen again, and let it sink in deeper. And if you're serious about understanding yourself on a deeper level, then make sure you're part of this journey. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen, because this isn't just content. It's a space where you keep evolving, step by step. And before you leave, drop a comment, "I'm still becoming." Because you are. And that is your real power. And the moment you admit that, "I'm still becoming," something even deeper begins to unfold inside you. Not just awareness, but direction. Because now you're no longer just observing your life. You're participating in it consciously. You start catching yourself in real time. The way you respond to stress, the way you handle emotions, the way you speak to yourself when things don't go your way. And for the first time, you realize something powerful. You have more control than you thought. Not control over everything that happens, but control over how you process it, how you interpret it, how you move forward from it. And that changes everything. Because before, life may have felt like something that was just happening to you. But now, it feels like something you're shaping, moment by moment. You begin to notice patterns not just in others, but within yourself. Habits you picked up without realizing. Reactions that were never truly yours. Beliefs that were handed to you, not chosen by you. And instead of judging yourself for it, you start becoming curious. Why do I think this way? Where did this come from? Is this actually true or just familiar? That curiosity is where real change begins. Because the moment you question something, you create space to change it. And slowly, piece by piece, you start rebuilding yourself. Not from pressure, not from comparison, but from awareness. You choose better responses. You set clearer boundaries. You walk away from things that drain you, without needing to explain yourself to everyone. And at first, that might feel uncomfortable, maybe even selfish. But it's not. It's necessary. Because for a long time, you may have been available to everyone, except yourself. You gave your energy, your time, your attention, without checking if it was being valued, without asking if it was costing you your peace. But now, you notice. And once you notice, you can't go back. You start protecting your energy differently. Not by shutting the world out, but by becoming intentional with what you allow in, who you listen to, where you invest your time, what you tolerate. And this is where your identity becomes even clearer. Because it's no longer just about what you understand. It's about what you choose. Every single day. Even in small moments. Especially in small moments. Choosing to stay calm when it's easier to react. Choosing to walk away when it's easier to stay stuck. Choosing to grow when it's easier to remain comfortable. And these choices, they start to compound. Quietly, consistently, until one day you look at yourself and you don't fully recognize who you used to be. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've finally become more of who you were meant to be all along. Less noise, less confusion, less need to prove anything. More clarity, more peace, more alignment. And here's something important to understand. This journey, it doesn't make you perfect. You'll still have moments of doubt, moments of overthinking, moments where old patterns try to come back. That's normal. That's human. But the difference now is you're aware of it. And awareness gives you a choice. You don't stay stuck there like before. You recognize it and you shift. You pause and you realign. You fall and you get back up, faster, stronger, wiser. Because growth isn't about never struggling again. It's about not losing yourself when you do. And that's the version of you that's emerging right now. Someone who can face life without running from it. Someone who can feel deeply without being controlled by it. Someone who can stand alone without feeling incomplete. And that kind of identity, it doesn't need validation. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't need to be understood by everyone, because it understands itself. So if you're in this phase right now, where things feel like they're shifting internally, where you're outgrowing old patterns, where you're starting to see life differently, don't resist it. Lean into it. Because this isn't confusion. This is transformation in progress. Music soft piano returns calm and hopeful. And transformation takes time. It takes patience. It takes consistency. But most importantly, it takes honesty with yourself. About what you feel. About what you want. About what no longer aligns with who you're becoming. So give yourself that honesty. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it forces you to make changes. Because every honest step you take brings you closer to a version of yourself that feels real, stable, grounded, at peace. Final emotional rise, uplifting close continues. And if you've made it this far, then you're not just watching anymore. You're understanding. You're connecting. You're evolving. So don't stop here. Keep going deeper. Keep observing. Keep choosing growth, even when it's not easy. Because everything you're becoming is being built in these exact moments. If this part of your journey resonates with you, stay connected with Last Call for the Chosen. Because this space exists for people who are ready to think deeper, feel deeper, and grow with intention. And before you go, drop a comment, I'm choosing growth. Because that choice, repeated every day, will change your entire life. And when you say it, I'm choosing growth, you're not just repeating words. You're making a decision that quietly separates your future from your past. Because growth isn't a single moment. It's a series of small decisions that most people never see. The moments where you choose patience instead of reaction, understanding instead of assumption, silence instead of unnecessary explanation. And these moments, they don't feel dramatic. They feel simple, almost invisible. But over time, they reshape everything about who you are. You start noticing that you don't get pulled into the same chaos anymore. The same situations that once drained you. Now they barely touch you. Not because life stopped being challenging, but because you stopped giving everything the same level of access to you. Music slightly deepens grounded power. You begin to understand something most people overlook. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everything deserves your time. And definitely, not everything deserves your energy. And once that clicks, you move differently. You speak differently. You think differently. Because now, you're no longer trying to control everything around you. You're focused on mastering what's within you. Your thoughts, your responses, your direction. And here, where your identity becomes undeniable. Not because you tell people who you are, but because your actions start reflecting it consistently. You become someone who stays calm under pressure. Someone who listens more than they speak. Someone who doesn't need to prove anything, because their presence already says enough. And the interesting part is, you stop chasing clarity, because clarity starts coming to you naturally. Through experience, through reflection, through the way you handle situations differently than before. Visual, light breaking through clouds. You start trusting your decisions more. Even when they're not perfect. Even when they don't work out immediately. Because you understand now. Every step is part of the process, not a mistake. And that removes a lot of fear. The fear of getting it wrong. The fear of being judged. The fear of not having everything figured out. Because you realize, no one truly has everything figured out. Some people just hide their uncertainty better than others. But you've stopped pretending. You've stopped forcing yourself into roles that don't fit. You've stopped ignoring that inner voice that's been guiding you this whole time. And that voice, it's getting clearer, stronger, more direct. Visual, close-up, focused eyes, calm expression. Not loud, not overwhelming. Just consistent. And the more you listen to it, the more aligned your life becomes. You start making decisions that feel right, not just look right. You start choosing paths that make sense internally, not just externally. And that's when something powerful happens. Your confidence stops depending on outcomes. Pause, emphasis. It starts coming from within. From knowing that no matter what happens, you'll handle it. You'll learn from it. You'll grow through it. And that kind of confidence, it can't be taken away. Because it's not based on approval. It's not based on validation. It's built through experience, through awareness, through choosing yourself again and again. And this is where your identity becomes something real. Not an idea, not a label, but a way of being. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to explain it. People can feel it. In your presence, in your energy, in the way you carry yourself. And maybe that's what surprises you the most. Not that you've changed, but how naturally it happened once you stopped resisting it. You didn't force this version of yourself. You allowed it. By paying attention. By being honest. By choosing growth, even when it was uncomfortable. So if you're still here, still listening, understand this clearly. You're not in the same place you were before. Even if your environment hasn't fully changed yet. Even if everything doesn't look different on the outside. Something inside you has shifted. And that shift is the beginning of everything else changing. So don't rush the results. Don't compare your path. Don't doubt the process just because it's quiet. Because the most powerful transformations happen silently before they ever become visible. Keep trusting yourself. Keep observing. Keep choosing growth, one moment at a time. Because who you're becoming is being built right now in ways you can't fully see yet. If this message continues to resonate with you, stay connected with Last Call for the Chosen. Because this journey doesn't end here, it deepens. And before you leave, drop a comment, I trust the process. Because that trust will carry you further than you ever expected. And when you finally reach this point where you can honestly say, I trust the process, something inside you becomes still. Not empty, not numb, but steady. Because you're no longer chasing who you're supposed to be. You're becoming who you already are without forcing it. And that changes the way you move through everything. You stop rushing your life. You stop comparing your timeline. You stop feeling like you're falling behind. Because now you understand. There was never a race. There was only awareness and the time it takes to build it. You begin to appreciate the quiet moments more. The moments where nothing dramatic is happening, but everything inside you feels aligned. And that's something most people spend years searching for, without realizing it was always built from within. You don't need constant noise anymore. You don't need constant validation. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone who can't see it. because you see it. And that's enough. And maybe that's the real shock in your identity. It's not something loud. It's not something exaggerated. It's not something the world necessarily claps for. It's this quiet strength, this calm awareness, this grounded sense of self that doesn't shake easily anymore. You've become someone who can stand in uncertainty without losing direction, someone who can face change without losing themselves, someone who can walk alone for a while without feeling lost. And that is rare, not because you were chosen in some unrealistic way, but because you chose to become aware when it would have been easier to stay asleep to it all. And now, you carry something most people can feel, even if they can't explain it. Clarity, presence, realness. So from here, there's nothing you need to force, nothing you need to rush, nothing you need to prove. Just continue. Continue being aware. Continue being honest with yourself. Continue choosing growth, even in small, quiet ways. Because those small choices, they're building a life that actually feels like yours. And one day, without even realizing when it happened, you'll look around, and everything will feel different. Not perfect, but real, aligned, yours. So keep going. Stay grounded. Stay aware. And most importantly, stay true to what you now understand. If this entire journey, from the very first word to this moment, felt like it was speaking directly to you, then this isn't where it ends. This is where it deepens. Subscribe to Last Call for the Chosen, and stay connected to this space where you continue to grow, think deeper, and understand yourself on a level most people never reach. And before you leave, drop one final comment. I know who I'm becoming. Because now, you don't just feel it, you understand it.